Over 7 million different animals inhabit our planet.
Real whales, yeah, but not narwhals, narwhals. So
Narwhals,
hopefully,
yes.
if you're not already...
What can they teach us?
Does it grow out of their face, or does it grow out, like come out of their mouth?
No, it's like through the skin.
Many species are in crisis and need your help. Join the movement at allcreaturespod.com.
Welcome to All Creatures Podcast. This is Chris.
And I'm Angie.
And we're doing narwhals, we just said this, not narwhals.
That's right. Not to be confused.
Yes, they are narwhals.
However, people in general are probably just excited to hear about them and learn about them and know that they are not just a myth.
No, they're real.
My beautiful, wonderful, amazingly super intelligent and smart cousin Johanna, I believe she just found out in her mid-30s that narwhals are actually real. And not,
no way. Not a myth.
And not a myth, because if you stick with us, as you learn more about their physiology and what they look like, that they are unicorns of the sea, literally.
Right.
And
yes.
Everybody knows that unicorns are a myth. Okay.
Yes.
So I think that that's maybe what led her to believe that it was just a cool icon or cartoon figure. And so, yeah, she was very pleasantly surprised when she learned that they were actually real critters.
real whales, huh?
Real whales, yeah, but not narwhals, narwhals. So
narwhals,
hopefully,
yes.
If you're not already a fan of narwhals, which I feel like anybody who's ever seen a picture of them or read about them or seen a little clip or anything or a cartoon, I feel like you're probably already on board with narwhals.
Yes.
But if you're not, stick with us, and I promise you will be at the end.
They are really cool. And it's, not only unicorns of the sea, there's another cetacean, a whale. A couple weeks ago, Angie and I covered a story. That's what made us want to do this one, that there was a narwhal hanging out with belugas, which when we get a little bit later in the podcast, I think I know why maybe that narwhal was hanging out with those belugas. So maybe we'll be able to answer that question.
Chris, do you think that narwhal was singing, "Baby beluga"?
Probably.
Baby beluga.
Was it a male narwhal?
I think that's
was
a
it a
kid's
male
song.
narwhal or a female narwhal? Because it depends.
I don't know.
It depends.
It does depend.
Yes.
That's true.
Now, do you know where the word narwhal comes from? Did you see that?
The Latin word?
No, just why they call them narwhals. Where it came from. It's okay. It's not Latin. It's Norse. Okay. Yeah, which makes sense because they're up in the Arctic, which we're going to cover here in a second, where they range. So you obviously had the Vikings. So nar means corpse-like, and then the whales, narwhals. So what they thought was because older narwhals, as you're going to learn, are more white in color, and so underneath they look like drowned sailors. So they're like corpse-like whales is what they call them, narwhals. So that's where the meaning comes from.
That is interesting. I did not catch that. I picked up on that their scientific name, Monodon monoceros.
Oh, good. Yeah.
That means one tooth, one horn.
Right.
So
mono,
that was
one.
Interesting. Yeah, Monodon monoceros. So
good.
But I didn't pick up on the corpse-like sailor whale.
Yeah, that's what it is. Which you would think the beluga looks more like that, right? The white whale.
Right, but maybe it's a location thing or, But I love that history. Cool factoid, Chris.
Now, before we get rolling, Angie, we're in our second year of the podcast. So, I wanted to start begging and pleading with our audience to help us grow this. We've done a year. We've done over a year.
I can't believe it's been that long, because as I'm reading to my children or watching the Discovery Channel or a Nature Channel, or flipping through my news feed, because I follow a lot of wonderful nature organizations and animal groups, I'm always like, oh my gosh, we haven't covered this and we haven't covered that. We haven't covered this. And there's so many taxon that are super underrepresented in this podcast. So we've got a long ways to go is what I guess.
Yes.
So yes, please help us stick around. That's for sure. Thank you for
listening. Yes. Please, if you can share it to a friend, if everybody did that, next thing you know, we're at a few thousand listeners a week, and then we're up to 10,000 listeners a week, then 100,000 listeners a week, and then we're huge. So if you can just share it with a friend,
I like your math.
Yes.
That's really one of my favorite traits about you is your optimism. So I appreciate your optimistic math with extra zeros in it.
I'm sick of it just being our mothers listening to this podcast, right?
I know, but they love us. My mom finally doesn't think she finally fixed the volume on her so she doesn't think I talk too loud.
Yeah.
She fixed the speed on it so she doesn't think I talk too fast. I think she had it like on chipmunk speed. So
oh gosh, no wonder why. Oh my goodness, yeah. No, so I mean, we've got listeners from all over the world, down under, good day, mate. And, up in Russia, we have some listeners.
Yes. And Norway,
we have listeners. It's awesome. It's fun doing this. So if you can help us grow this year, we're going to really push it hard. In our second year, we've got an incredible slate of animals coming up. We've got interviews scheduled. And we're just going to keep pushing. So thank you. And
please make recommendations on animals because I know there's a lot more obscure ones in the different countries that you are from, and help educate us and the rest of the world as well. And make your suggestions on our Facebook page, or of course you can always go to our webpage and email us, whatever is more convenient. But I would love to hear suggestions of what people would like to hear more of. More birds? Are you into more reptiles? More megafauna, hoofstock. I'm sure everybody wants more hoofstock.
Yes.
I can do this podcast for the next 5 years just on hoofstock.
Hoofstock, yeah. There's a lot of them. I mean, I just, every time I see an article, like, now you're seeing giraffes. Some giraffes are, critically endangered. And I know. But we just covered giraffes. Now orangutans, and we did them. And we did the saola, the unicorn on land. And there's just so many cool species we've covered, and there's so many more, millions.
Yes.
So
and they all
now you want to stay tuned.
So.
Yes, they do. Now you want to stay tuned because at the end, I'm going to answer for you. Which animal has the longest tusk ever found? Ever found. So you were betting on what?
Well, if I had to take an educated guess, I would probably say, mammoth, or is it a mastodon? Those are the similar ones.
Maybe.
Okay.
But it's not those, no.
Oh,
maybe.
Oh man, you tease.
See,
okay.
You have to wait to find out.
I will stick around. With bells
I hope
on.
so. Now the narwhal, it's their tusk, their single tusk or tooth can be as big as 10 feet long. So that's pretty phenomenal. 1 story long. That is crazy.
That's taller than you. Almost you and a half, right? Yeah.
Yeah. It's a story. It's a story tall of a house, a normal house. Like, holy smokes. Over 3 meters, right? 3 to 4 meters. That is a long tusk for an animal that can get up to 17 or 18 feet. Generally, they're 13, 14 feet. So their tusks are almost as long as their body, which is crazy. It's crazy. It's a crazy adaptation. Yeah, we're going to get more into the tusk and what it does or what they think it does. But, it's just a long tooth and it's got tons of nerve endings on it. So that's going to be important when we get to it. Now, only males usually have a tusk and only 15% of females have tusks.
Correct.
So you do see narwhals without them, and those are female. Right?
And in rare cases, a right tooth because the tusk is generally their left tooth that forms the tusk. But in some occasions, the right tooth can form a tusk and it'll twist in the same directions. And even more rare occasions, for whatever that's worth, more rare than rare, 2 tusks can develop. And this, this has been seen before. This has been seen before in females. But it is a rare event. So typically, if you see a tusked narwhal, it's a male.
Now, the babies are born blue-gray, the adults are mottled gray, and then the old adults are nearly white, right? So that's where that drowned sailor came from.
Yeah, and then, well, and they're also described in a lot of the literature as counter-shaded, which means that they're dark on the top and, like you said, lighter on the bottom. And they basically, they change, which is kind of cool. They change colors as they age.
Right.
So the older they are, they're more closer to white or more white on them.
Right. And then some of the animals we've covered, the manta rays and the whale sharks and blue whales to an extent, they all have that counter shade, which is, again, you think about it, if a predator is looking down or prey item is looking down, the whale's darker, so it's harder to see. And then when you look up to the surface, they're white underneath, so it's harder for them to see that animal or that narwhal, which has it. So yeah, they're just beautiful. They're just beautiful, beautiful whales.
Yeah, and their head is, I don't know, comparatively, but it is relatively small, and the snout is bluntish. And their flippers are short and rounded. And they don't have a dorsal fin.
No.
But they
have that long ridge, and the belugas, and I'm going to get to the family here in a minute. Belugas very, very similar. So in the narwhal, that ridge is a little bit more defined than, say, in a beluga whale. But yeah, really cool stuff. Now, up to 18 feet. I mean, that's from nose to tail. That's a small, medium-sized whale, right? If we go, that's about the size of a large great white, 18 feet. That's actually a huge great white. And
don't want to see that. No, thank
you. Nope. In comparison, humpback whales are, 15 meters. And again, our blue whales are 100 feet long. So, I mean, again, that was such a cool episode. These blue whales are just fascinating
Oh,
creatures.
they are.
And then they do weigh up to 4,200 pounds, or 1,900 kilograms. So.
Right. Yeah, that's
pretty big.
I mean, that struck me. I guess I didn't realize that they were that they would weigh that much. But interestingly enough, Chris, their weight is 1/3 blubber.
Jeez, yeah. Well, yeah.
1/3.
Yeah.
So that sure made me feel good about myself. Let's be real.
33% fat, pure fat, not body fat. Just, that's just blubber, because they do have fat in their organs and stuff. Well, that's a good segue, because they live in the Arctic, and they're, really up under the sea ice for a long time, up to 5 months of the year. They really hunt under the sea ice. So you find them in Canada and around Greenland, and then north of Norway and Finland and Russia, right? They're not off the coast. They're actually north on the sea ice or under the sea ice.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So they need that blubber. I mean, it's frigid. It's frigid.
Yeah. Well, as we're approaching the winter months here in North America, I definitely could use a little bit more blubber and or winter coats, or I can't even begin to think how much fat or insulation. Let's just use the word insulation, whether it comes from the form of blubber or from the form of your North Face winter coat. I can't begin to imagine how much you must need to keep your body temperature up in that kind of environment.
Right.
In
the frigid sea. I mean, it's frozen at the top, right? So the water's near freezing or freezing. Ugh, yeah. Cold. Them and the polar bears and the walruses, right?
But these guys do migrate a little bit during the summer, right? They drop down into deep bays and fjords. And I guess there's a large population in East Canadian Arctic and Northwest Greenland that will house them in the summertime. So they do follow the trends a little bit. But yeah, I mean, in general, though, they are in cold water. Really overall, they're an Arctic diving, swimming, thriving animal. Loving.
Yeah. Yes, they love it. If you put them at the equator, they would roll over dead because it's so hot. Now, it's interesting. Okay, so we've covered polar bears. We've covered reindeer or caribou. We've covered the walrus just a few weeks ago. Now we're covering another Arctic animal. Here's the narwhal. Why care? We keep going on this with global warming. The sea ice is disappearing. It's obviously going to impact fish populations. So it's going to turn around and influence whale populations, which again, all of them are just critical that healthy ecosystem, right? So, what are some of the reasons we should care about an animal that lives way up at the North Pole?
Because they're so cool looking.
Yeah, they are cool looking.
And if that answer doesn't satisfy you, the narwhal is really rich in tradition and culture for a lot of the Inuit people of the northern Arctic regions. It's been part of their culture for hundreds of thousands of years, and they've historically been used as a staple food source for Arctic people. And their carcasses and bodies have had a number of uses. Of course, blubber can be oil, and their intestines, which is called sinew, I think I'm saying that right, sinew, is often used as thread. And of course, the tusk can be traded and carved historically. And today, the main product is called a mattock, which is skin with some blubber attached, and ivory. And these products from the narwhal are only used and traded typically from animals that have been hunted in Canada and Greenland for food for the Arctic people. And they basically help bolster the economy locally. And of course, there are many regulations as far as other people hunting these animals, but it is something to be considered today as far as how many narwhals are being taken out of the water, because you don't necessarily want to hinder traditional people's food sources, especially in a remote region like that where there's not much. Yeah, there's not much.
There's no supermarkets.
You can only eat so much snow and ice, right?
Yes.
For sustenance.
Yes.
But in the same instance, it's kind of going to be a fine balance. And this is a lot of part of what conservationists and people at the IUCN are trying to look at numbers as far as how to maintain healthy populations. But with that being said, besides a positive impact for humans for food, there's starting to be some interest in narwhals for ecotourism and, of course, research and education. So that could be, the more the people are interested in learning about narwhals and want to see them or go out on boat tours, the more money that can be poured into some of these Arctic areas that don't have a lot of staple income. So potentially could really benefit their local economy, which is always really important. But I mean, honestly, the research shows that there's still over 1,000 narwhals killed each year between Canada and Greenland, which is thought to probably be above the sustainable level. And we'll talk a little bit more. We'll talk a little bit more about their generation interval and their age.
We might as well throw it,
maturity.
Yeah, throw it out there now. There's only they assume about 123,000.
Right.
So that's what IUCN estimates. Yes. So 1,000 a year. That's a downward trajectory for that species.
Correct. And that's just for hunting alone. And as Chris mentioned previously, and we'll touch more on in the pod, but there are a lot of other issues when you're an animal swimming in the ocean as far as habitat loss. This region's heavily mined and drilled, and they're worried about heavy metal contaminations with narwhals and a lot of other things that we'll touch on when we get to the conservation segment of this podcast. But so it is worth starting to take notice before it's too late, right? And as we move through the pod too, you're probably going to notice there are some gaps in the knowledge as far as their physiology and behavior, because they are still this mysterious sea unicorn. There's still a lot about them that we don't know. And so if we wait till it's too late, we're gonna be basically behind the what would that analogy be? Like behind the cart or
curveball? I don't remember.
Let's play charades, Chris. Behind the curve. I think it's behind the curve. I'm so bad with these kinds of things. My husband always makes fun of me. So we don't want to be behind the curve if we don't have to, because they're such cool sea creatures and cetaceans. Yeah,
they are. They're amazing. I mean, whales are amazing. And I'm in love. Yeah, and the ocean's a big place. And when you it just blows me away. You know, we're here after a year. We're talking about all these different species. Some species.
Is that what blows you away, that we haven't been kicked off the air yet?
Yeah, that too.
Somebody hasn't come in with a cane and been like, "You two, out of here.
Out of here."
You're fired. Yeah.
No. It's, I mean, you know, we go back to, you know, you got the catball langer. Shout out to Niaga Leonard out there in Catball Island. You know, you're down to 60 right. or 70. I mean, that is insane. We did Sumatran rhino with Dr. Long. You know, you're down to 50, 60 animals. That's insane.
That's an upward battle for sure.
Yeah. But still, when you're talking about 123,000 in the Great Blue Sea, that's huge. That's tiny. It's tiny.
Yeah. And as far as the IUCN reports, there are probably only like 12 major pods of them, which isn't very many, like you said, for the, you know, for the vast region that they are in. That they're, I mean, that's not a lot. There should be more. Historically, there were a lot more.
And we're picking animals, you know, some that we pick because they're critically endangered, or some that we pick because their physiology is really cool. This is one that we picked that the physiology is really cool. But you still look at the big picture of all the animals we've covered. Where's the population? Like none of the, I can't think of any animal we've covered that is just like huge, booming, doing great. You know, maybe we need to cover some. Oh
man, there's too many of those guys.
Yeah.
We need to call them.
No, I mean, you know, it's just like
we should look for that. That's a good task to look for those guys. Yeah.
Yeah. What species are? I mean, rats. I guess not the little mice that we've covered, but you know, I guess city rats or something. So it's just it blows me away. It blows me away. Every species we've covered to date is in a downward trajectory generally, or not doing well, or they're at a low population. When, you know, there's 7-8 billion people, there's not a species we've covered that's come close to 1 million. Not one.
Oh gosh, no.
No. And everything we've covered's been about 100,000 or less. You know, it's just, and it's going down. It's going downhill. You know, that's scary. That stuff's scary. You know, oh my God. I don't know. Okay. I don't want to make this a bummer podcast.
Time out. I need to go cry in my room for a little bit and come back.
Just go get some wine. You'll be all right.
Check. I already did that. It's Friday night here.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So anyways, it blows me away. And that's why we care. That's why we do this. We're going to keep doing it. It doesn't matter what Angie and I do in life. We'll be like 90 and be like, hey, bring John on again, and bring him out in his little walker. And I remember when, you know, so, narwhals. Okay. There's single species. And Angie already said it, Monodon, monoceros. The family is Monodon today. And there's only two species, narwhals and beluga whales. Okay. So that's the two species. They're very closely related. These are the medium-sized whales with, you talked about that forehead, the melon bulbous forehead. That's what they both have, you know, sensory organs. You talked about their
echolocation.
Yes. Bailey, Bailey, the beluga whale from Finding Dory. Again, no true dorsal fin for both of these. Now, earlier I said, I wonder why that narwhal was hanging out with the belugas. Because, Angie, rarely, and I don't know if you cover this in repro or not, but beluga and narwhals will sometimes interbreed. It's rare, but it does happen. So again, if that was a male chasing a bunch of females, like, hey, baby, singing to them, or it probably was a female that was with some males and was like, all right, hey, you're my new hubby, so let's go and swim.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess I didn't realize they were that closely related.
Yeah. It'd be interesting with the calves if they can calve or not. I didn't get to that.
But that always leads me to the question of why. Like, what is it not able to find its own mate?
When hormones
are there not enough of them? Are they pushed out of their normal habitat?
Yeah.
Global climate change? Are they looking for different food sources? So
it's. I'm sure probably what happened is one was lost and was like, oh, and they, they're so loud and chatty and just probably ganged up with like, oh, here, you're a bunch of cool whales. Let me hang out with you. I mean, that's what I would assume, but I don't know. It's weird that they can interbreed.
The researchers don't know. I'll have to follow up on that story. I don't know if there was ever anything that was there was any more follow-ups on it. But it is interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. Now, the tusk. Why in the heck? So these are the questions I had. The rabbit hole I went down this time. Why in the heck do they have this 10-foot tusk? It is not convenient. It's huge. There's some theories on it. They actually did, and I don't have it on my slide, but they did see one that used it to swat a fish. So it did use it to catch a fish.
For protection.
Right.
For hunting.
For hunting, yeah. Like smacked a cod and stunned it and then ate it. But like you said, it
didn't spear it.
No, they don't spear. No, can't. That'd be kind of hard, yeah. Spear fishing. But probably just swat their head and stunned it and then went and ate it. And that was just one researcher saw that behavior. So who knows if they all do it. Now, like you said, they do have two, but the one is an actual tooth. So here's the thing. It's got millions of nerves in it. They know that. And it's highly sensitive, this tusk. So it's not like dead limb or something at the end. They actually can feel with it. So initially, what researchers thought is they use this to break sea ice, which makes sense, right?
That's what I always thought.
Yeah, and I think they do use it for that, or defend themselves, like especially males fighting, they tend to do that. Now there is a paper out there that they think, and I've read some of again, here we go, science, the great debate, that they thought that it could detect changes in salinity and temperatures of water. So when they're searching out food, and it was interesting because the study that did it, they netted or got these animals in there. I kind of agree with the other view, but what they did is they pulled them up beside the boat and then they poured in a bunch of different salinity water and they noticed their heart rates went down. And the one researcher's like, yeah, of course their heart rate went down. You were chasing them, got them captured. Of course their heart rate's really high. And then after a while, it's going to decrease. Science, this is why we do that. But, that was one study that thought they could do that. Sexual dominance is another thing they believe it does. It's pretty much, they think, is a multi-purpose tool. They use it for many things, not just one thing.
One answer,
yeah.
Sure.
But, I always think, breaking through the ice. I mean, if they're under the pack ice for 5 months out of the year and they got to breathe.
Right, they got to go up and get oxygen, right? They're mammals.
Yeah, that gives them an evolutionary advantage to want to develop this. It gives them that advantage of like, why did we get this single tooth growing? Which is crazy. Like, it's crazy. Imagine the early narwhals with the little stubs.
Yeah, and they did better with their little stubs, and so it just kept,
growing. It's like
growing and growing.
It's like I saw that giraffe meme again today with the neck getting longer and longer and the tree getting taller and taller. It's like, screw off.
Well, now what I found interesting is that the distal end, so the end farther away from their body, it usually has like a polished appearance, and whereas the remainder can be like reddish or greenish in color due to algae growth. And it does have a rich blood supply, but broken tusks are common.
Ow.
And what happens is it doesn't grow back per se, but the end is filled with this
the new bone,
dentin growth, which is basically right.
And they do
the hard stuff, and
it's off National Geographic website, and they do have a really cool graphic that I'll just have to make sure I put it on and give the citation to where you can find it. Showing the tooth, it has blood supply and it has a highly innervated. So they have, it shows the nerves, that it has sensory nerves again. So that just to break, my teeth hurt thinking about that. Ugh, ow. So, like.
Yeah, I know. My poor husband. Talk to John. Poor guy had double root canal a couple weeks ago.
No, thank you.
Yikes.
No, thank you.
Even the dentist was like, "Whoa, we haven't seen this in a while." He's such a trooper, though. He's very, very brave.
He's a tough man. Now, again, we're gonna whale evolution. We've covered this. We covered this in blue whales. So again, going back a long time ago, there was an ungulate, a hoofed animal. It resembled a wolf with hooves. The
Like my favorite things ever.
Yes.
Wolves and
Yes.
Wolves and hoofs.
And hoofs. Let's just put it. This is your animal right here. The mesonid kids, whatever.
That is totally my spirit animal for sure.
A wolf.
We found it after a year of podcasting. We found my spirit animal.
Yeah. So they're related to artiodactyls. So your even-toed hoofed mammals.
Even-toed ungulates. Yep.
Now, there's one that we've covered that's closely related. That's a land mammal, but loves water. Yep, you won that one. Yep. That is the
hippo.
Camel. That's the camel, right?
Hey,
I'm just kidding.
Hey
I'm kidding. You did beat John on that one. So yeah, they're related to hippos. That's the closest land mammal.
So just to summarize, the narwhal's closest mammal is a hippo.
Well, besides other whales, right?
More or less.
Land mammal. Yeah, the closest land mammal would be a hippo, right?
Okay.
So over 60 million years, is when.
Yeah, I forgot to mention the 60 million years between them, but still.
Yeah, a long time. Then you got down to the whales and the toothed whales. So you do have the oceanic dolphins, porpoises, then belugas and narwhals. Okay, so they're actually more related to, the porpoises, and they split off about 10 million years ago. And then over time, they developed this crazy tusk. I mean, just crazy tusk. So yeah, cool stuff. It's always amazing, natural history. Now, Angie, these ones live pretty long. I did see somewhere say as old as 55 years. I mean, these aren't held under human care. So, but on average, 20 to 30 years, right? 35 years.
Yeah. No, I read up to 50 in the wild. But yeah, I think on average, it's going to be less than that. But yeah, currently they are not housed under human care in any facilities, and anytime that's happened for whatever reason, it hasn't really gone well. They just attempts at breeding them have not been successful, and they don't really survive long. So
yeah.
I guess that's the unicorn nature in them, right? The sea unicorn nature in them. But yeah, and their generation interval, so to kind of reproduce themselves to a fully functioning another breeding adult is going to be 20 years or so.
Now, some cool physiology. One of the things I want to talk about today is teeth, because the tusk is a canine teeth. Okay, so if people aren't familiar with teeth, this is generally for mammals, and obviously it differs from species to species, but let's just talk about us. So we have our two front incisors. We have two in the top, two in the bottom. Okay. So you have your two central incisors, your bottom two central incisors. Now, the two next to them are lateral incisors. Okay. So you have four incisors.
I wish everybody could see. I wish everybody could see Chris right now. He's totally like has his fingers in his mouth, touching his teeth. He's totally giving like this amazing lecture
to you.
It's just it's a sad thing that like I'm the only one that gets to see this and appreciate it.
That's how I teach, and I'm like, oh my god, you probably just taught this in your class. It's like you can teach me.
No, keep going. I'll add some facts.
So here you go, Angie.
This is like my Friday night entertainment.
So we have our four incisors, right? The two central, the two lateral, then your canine teeth before your molars. So then you have your your premolars and your molars, and that's the human mouth. So your canine teeth are way to the side. Here I'm pointing to my side for Angie. That's where that freaking tooth's coming from. That's where that tooth's coming from. So it looks like some weird angle when they have this thing growing out of their face. It's just bizarre.
Yeah, that was gonna be my question, Chris. Does it grow out of their face, or does it grow out come out of their mouth?
No, it's like through the skin of their lip.
It's through the skin. Yeah, of their lip.
when you look incredible. At I have a really good close up, and it's it's bizarre looking. These things are freaky. They're great. They're beautiful. But the close up I have, you can see their mouth, and then their upper lip. It's like almost a hose ring with the tusk growing right through it. So, ow for one,
right?
Ow, and then two, you have this just funky looking thing coming out of one tooth in the upper part of their mouth. It's bizarre. Yeah, they're just
okay. Well, my quiz time for you to go off on a little different direction.
Okay.
How many teeth does an adult have? An adult human.
Oh,
without looking at your notes.
21.
Meh.
32.
Yes.
32. I don't know why my notes said 17 to that's molars, 17 to 21 molars. Or maybe that's when you get them. That's the age. Sorry, I was trying to cheat.
It's a late night for everybody. That's hilarious.
Well, horses have 32 to 34, right? So you have the wolf teeth, or 36. You have wolf teeth and all that stuff. So yeah.
So with that being said, how many baby teeth or deciduous teeth do our boys have?
24, right?
20.
20. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
I just taught this the other day.
Yeah, I thought so. It's like, why am I pointing to my mouth? I'm like, I'm sure you just did this in your class.
Yeah, I know. We just covered what section? Oh, we're in the digestive system.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Which is super fun for me.
Yeah.
So my poor students it was cute the other day. I went in to teach, and I normally wear like nice shoes, like proper
teaching uniform. Yeah.
Shoes. Yeah. Teaching uniform. And I was so excited about my digestion lecture about the digestive system. I wore my running shoes so I could be like pumped up and jumping around and active and
nutrition.
And they all thought I was a super dork.
Nutrition's interesting.
I would say if I just get one of you to care a little bit more about nutrition and the digestive system, appreciation for feces, than you had when you walked in the door, I will go home a happy teacher.
I think we've established you like poop. I think we've established that like by the third podcast. Like
yes, and one of my students was great. He was talking about colors of poop and all this and that. So I might have
Who has white poop? Who has white poop? Come on.
Birds.
No. Well, okay, birds. What mammal? Bats. What mammal has white poop?
Bats.
Besides bats.
Well, you can't keep going besides. I did pretty good.
We've covered them. It's really unique to them. In Africa.
Man, you have such a good memory.
In Africa.
You're like okay.
They like to eat bone.
Oh, hyenas.
Yeah. Hyenas have that white poop. It's just really unique to them. Yeah, it's really unique to them. Yeah, it's really weird. Now, the cool thing about narwhals, I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff. One of the things is they can stay under for 25 minutes, which is longer than a blue whale. Blue whale was 20 minutes.
Wow. I didn't catch that.
They can dive up to a mile, 5,000 feet or 1,500 meters.
I read that and I almost fell out of my seat. Yeah, that's incredible.
That is deep, because that's where they hunt.
Very deep.
You know,
and cold and dark and wow.
Yeah. So again, how do they do it? Just a quick review. Again, if you haven't heard the blue whale episode, please go listen to it. I need to listen to it again. That was such an amazing episode about whales.
I feel that's when we started hitting our stride, you know.
It was good. Mm-hmm. So whales, compared to us, have 2 times the amount of hemoglobin in their blood. So they have more oxygen. They can store more oxygen in their blood. That feeds muscles, feeds organs. So while they're underneath, they're getting more oxygen. Remember, they have this non-stick myoglobin. So myoglobin's the protein that binds oxygen in muscles. And obviously muscles, as you're working and as they're swimming, and swimming, they need it. Their muscles need that oxygen or they starve and you die. So the myoglobin that's non-sticky, they can store more oxygen in their muscles. So again, that helps them dive deeper. Then they also slow down their metabolism. They get a slower heart rate. And so you don't have as much oxygen being used while they do that. And then this isn't even on my slide, but I remember you telling me blue whales, their lungs actually flatten when they dive, right? So just crazy adaptation to be able to do that compared to land mammals. It's nuts. It's really cool. Really cool stuff.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. And I feel like we have a lot. I mean, I feel like engineers and researchers have a lot to learn from physiology that they could maybe take to some of their equipment to dive deeper down or to be more efficient at it or to improve how we utilize oxygen or how a submarine utilizes oxygen. It's just incredible.
Yeah, not only, and it's not just diving.
It's
not even just diving, but think about mountain climbers and stuff and the oxygen thin atmosphere, right?
Right. I didn't even think of that. Yes, exactly.
Like up there. Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff. Mm-hmm. Now, the predators, humans, as you mentioned, and then killer whales, orcas. Now, we were talking about them diving deep. They're carnivores. They feed on a whole bunch of stuff, deep sea things, halibut, cod, squid, shrimp, probably sea cucumbers. I mean, get their vegetables. That's whatever they can get.
Seriously, Chris, so I'm reading about their diet, and of course they're carnivores, and they tend to be pescivores, and of course they eat some mollusks. But I was reading one passage that was like, popular foods are polar cod, Greenland halibut, flounder, salmon, herring, crustaceans, octopus, squid. And I'm like, holy smokes, this is my kind of diet.
We're going seafood tonight, John.
That is, I feel like I feel like I could be a vegetarian, but I would be
still eat seafood.
Pressed to give up
seafood. Yeah.
Let alone polar cod, Greenland halibut, flounder, salmon. Oh my gosh. So this is the animal that I feel most impressed by their diet, where I'm jealous to the core
of what they eat. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They do. There's a lot of good fish up there. In the studies that they've done, they mostly eat cod and halibut. That makes up most of their diet. But like you said,
I'm fine with that.
Yeah. But like you said, they eat other things. And then, I'm sitting here thinking global warming, how's that going to affect cod? How's that going to affect halibut as the waters warm up? Are there going to be more moving south? Things like that. Now, remember, what species was it that does the sucking? I guess it was,
yes.
I guess it was whale shark.
Walrus.
Well, walrus too does it. And then whale shark does it too. So that's what these do. So like beaked whales, they don't have the beaks. So what they do is they create that vacuum by sucking prey into their mouth. They go, and then yum, have some sushi. Yeah.
The few functional teeth that the animal does have, they use it to suction and the emission of a jet of water to dislodge prey, such as different bottom living fishes and mollusks. And they also have a highly flexible neck that can help scan broad areas, which will inevitably help them capture more. Like Chris said, one researcher reported that they use their tusks to slap it in order to stun the fish, but the flexible neck and muscles in the necks help them get better scanning areas and see more things around them.
Okay, right. Now I've got an amazing picture that I'm looking at. And again, I'll post this on the show notes, but a whole pod of them in the sea ice and their behavior, their group behavior. I think there's some cool stuff that you get to cover with that.
Yeah. Well, there definitely are, like you mentioned, they're social animals, gregarious. And they're commonly found in pods of 6 to 20 or even more. And the pods that they are in are often segregated by sex. So there might be a bachelor group or more of a female group with calves. And smaller groups will tend to gather during the migration seasons to form herds of hundreds, if not thousands. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, that would be. Can you imagine seeing 1,000 of those? Oh my God.
Yeah.
That would be nuts.
Yeah. And so, but a lot of times they'll be seen in groups during packs of ice throughout the year, and breathing holes, so holes in the ice, are often maintained through sheets of ice they'll thrust their head and their thick melon sometimes several animals at once onto the ice packs. And then really, Chris, there's still a lot of holes in their time budgets or their behavior year round as far as what they do. I mean, we obviously know they're cetaceans, so there's, similar whale and porpoise and dolphin-like behaviors. But because they have never really been housed under human care very well, and just in general from the region that they live in and the hard access to get there. We're probably still, I don't know if we're at the infancy of knowing about their behavior, but there's definitely not a ton of reports on it. And for communication, similar to the beluga, they do echolocate, and they have that melon region on the front of their forehead. And so their main communication to one another is in form of echolocation clicks and whistles. And once again, researchers don't really know the extent of what all of these clicks and whistles mean, but whether it's their own language and the full scope of things that we're even like just starting to learn about dolphins, we're definitely
light years,
far, light years behind in narwhal research. So hopefully maybe some of you young listeners out there will hop on the first boat to the Arctic and become the next Jane Goodall of narwhals, because they need, they need somebody like that, right? Yeah. But here, stand by 1 second. I'll see if I can get a click and a whistle for you.
Man, that sounds like your 2-year-old.
Seriously.
Mom, give me food.
I like. We recently fell back here. For those of you that aren't from North America, we change our times in the spring and the fall, and so
it's the worst.
It is the worst. And so in the fall, we quote unquote gain an hour, right? No,
right, yeah. We'll fall back. You gain an hour. It's gaining an hour.
Gain an hour. But anyways, for whatever reason, my kids, their schedules have not changed. And so Zachary is up at like 5 a.m, sounding like a narwhal, clicking and whistling and His new thing is like, Daddy's bed. Daddy's bed. Oh, God. Because he likes to come play with us. And I'm so tired that I'm just like, come on.
Come on in.
But then he wants to party. It's like, it's just a mess. Oh, parenting is an act of selfless love. That's for sure.
Yeah, and just no sleep. Just don't. Yeah, until they're teenagers.
A lot of laughter and a lot of joke material for sure. But yes. So
they're great. Now you mentioned earlier about breeding intervals and 1,000, culling at least 1,000 over a year. So what's their repro status?
Yeah, well, Chris, so
what do we know?
You could write the book.
Well,
honestly, a lot about the narwhal mating system is unknown. But what we do know is that males reach sexual maturity around 8 to 9 years old. And depending on what their rank is in the pod or the female availability, that doesn't necessarily mean they'll breed when they're 8 or 9. And we're similar for females, they reach sexual maturity around 4 to 7. So it takes them a while, right? There's a slow turnover rate. But when boy narwhal meets girl narwhal and they fall in love, which we don't really know a lot about how that works, we do know that they will copulate vertically in the water, belly to belly. And we do know that the narwhal is a seasonal breeder, with mating occurring in March to May, and with a gestation period of 15 months, so a year and some change.
Wow, long time.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Serious investment, which is similar to other cetaceans. But the calving season is usually in July or August of the following year. So when a male and female do copulate and fertilization takes place, it has been reported that fetal or embryo. It has been reported that embryo narwhals will implant in the left uterine horn. So they must be similar to horses, where they have like the left and the right horn. And why they pick the left, I don't know. There's not enough research to really know why, or probably even how valid that is. But then the female will gestate for about 15 months or so, and when the calf is born, it's usually a singleton, although there have been some reports of twins. And that's interesting. Wow. That's similar to to horses, right? Or hoof stock. And the birth is going to take place tail first. And the calf is born ready to swim, and soon after birth with lots of blubber, about 25 millimeters of blubber. And they weigh about 80 kilograms. And they're anywhere from 1.5 to 1.7 meters long. So that's pretty good. Yeah, it's a pretty big calf.
Yeah.
And the lactation is unknown for how long they lactate, and feed their offspring. But it's suspected that the maternal investment is minimally 20 months, if not longer. So up to 2 years.
Wow.
So that's probably, once again, that's going to slow down their breeding interval, right? To minimally like probably 3 years or so. That's if a female is really producing. It's at most going to be every third year. And the calf is going to reach maturity when it's about 4 meters long and weighs about 900 kilograms for a female and about 1,600 kilograms in a male, which once again is about when they're anywhere from 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. So, yeah. So, I mean, that's the thing is,
cool, yeah.
It takes, there's not a high turnover rate. So as you mentioned, when you're calling 1,000 or so that we know of without the poaching trade or whatnot, that's, can they really how long can they withstand that?
It is. I mean, it's a good segue into conservation. I mean, even though it's least concern, they were nearly threatened, then they came back down just recently. Still, when you only have 123,000, you're losing 1,000 just to hunting.
Sure.
Now you have oil and gas exploration's a major threat. Now there's ships going over the North Pole because less sea ice,
right?
Less of a season of sea ice. So you have ship strikes,
pollution, noise and chemicals, and
there's just a lot
invasive, problematic species, genes, diseases, biological resources, fishing, over harvesting for aquatic resources. Yeah, I mean,
there's some. It's not. I don't want to go. We're not doing the downer podcast.
No, in the past, the other thing too is their population trend is unknown. So I don't want to mislead anybody. Like a lot of times it's reported, okay, this is increasing. More often it's decreasing. With the narwhals, it's potentially a hopeful story because we don't know what their population, if there's trending upward or downward. But hopefully in the years to come, we can gather more data and we'll be able to. They estimate there's about 123,000 individuals at this point in time in 12 subpopulations with a varying degree of genetic differences and geographic isolation is another issue, right? So, I mean, time will tell, but it is good to know that a lot of groups out there, well, not a lot, I shouldn't say. It's not like some of the more trendy animals. There are conservation groups out there that are trying to do more research and monitoring. They don't really have an action recovery plan, but they are monitoring. And protection of the waters, conservation sites are identified, but they really haven't been protected yet.
Yeah.
And
not needed. I mean, and it's, again, we cover some of these species that aren't on the endangered list, quote unquote, and we know we have limited resources, right? So there are like the vaquita and even blue whales are still endangered. So there's other species that are in a little bit more of a crisis than narwhals. But again, another species of the Arctic, they're in the same boat as the walrus, as the polar bear, as belugas, other species up there that roam that part of the world. Yeah.
And I do think the good news is that there are starting to be more education and more legislation that's being internationally recognized with narwhals, and they are subject to international management and trade controls. So that's helpful.
Yeah, it is. It is. So who's out there fighting the good fight?
Well, not a lot of people. Not as many. It's kind of like, I remember with hippos, I was just crushed. I'm like, okay, new goal in life. John and I need to start like a hippo conservation.
Yes.
Because there's just not.
They need it. And because they need it.
They need it. Narwhals need it. And they're not as necessarily popular. I couldn't find any group that focuses on just narwhal conservation.
Right.
Of course, you always have the wonderful World Wildlife Fund that is definitely looking into their conservation and fighting for narwhals as far as doing some research and, of course, education and raising funds about awareness and trying to protect these guys. So that's great. So you can adopt a narwhal from World Wildlife Fund, which is super. It's so funny.
Yeah, really cool.
I had the boys at my husband's zoo, and we were on their back room group table that everybody works at. Of course, there was a World Wildlife Fund holiday shopping guide, which is super phenomenal.
No. Yeah.
Go online if you are.
I'd go broke.
If you're looking for gifts for friends and families around the holiday seasons or for birthdays or just in general because you love people, because some of these gifts are just amazing and charming. Everything from T-shirts to ceramic cups to artwork to calendars. Xander, my son, wants a calendar he picked out. But in the back, they have all of the plush animals. We call them plushies in our family of the different endangered species. And so Xander and I and Zachary, while we were waiting for my husband to finish work, we were like picking out all of our favorites. And a narwhal was on there, and Xander was like, "I want the." Awesome. I want the narwhal, and so I think I need to get it for him because it's just
Santa needs to bring him a narwhal.
Yeah, like who gets to like. Yeah, I mean, who has a narwhal stuffed animal, right? That's so cool.
Nobody. Xander, hopefully.
And then let alone that then the funds get to go to their conservation. So World Wildlife Fund, they're amazing. I wish they would hire us.
I know. I love them.
And then of course, I always want people to check out or like on Facebook, the American Cetacean Society. They have a lot of really cool information about cetaceans, so whales, dolphins, and porpoises on their Facebook group and on their website. And they link a lot of researchers together and educators and conservation groups, and they support these animals and help protect them in the wild. So definitely like them on Facebook. Check out their website. They're a really great resource to have as far as what's going on in our oceans right now.
Right.
And lastly, Chris, I want to give a really quick shout out to a group called Peppermint Narwhal Creative. So they're a really cool creative media and or brand company. And they love narwhals, first all, it's in their name. But they basically celebrate the animal kingdom from iconic and obscure graphics and designs and slogans and like not infomercials, but like infographics. Yes. And they work with a lot of different conservation groups and institutions to help basically spread the message of like why you should love animals and nature and the ocean, especially marine life. They're huge narwhal fans, obviously. And they basically enjoy like having the mystery and trying to unravel it about animals, and just their graphics are phenomenal. And so if you're not familiar with this group, this work, because if you obviously don't need to hire them to make an infographic for you, just go like them on Facebook and check out what they do. Their Facebook feed is really filled with something new and fun each day about animals with facts and groupings and taxons. And they're one of the ones I see like once a week where I'm like, oh, Chris, we got to cover this one. I forgot, so I want to, definitely give Peppermint Narwhal Creative. And they can be found obviously on Facebook or www.peppermintnarwhal.com. So they're a group doing cool things and taking their passion about they're not necessarily scientists or conservationists per se classically, but they've taken their art and their media and their design ability and basically help educate a lot and inspire a lot of people. And so kudos to you guys.
Yeah, they're pretty cool. Yeah, they're really cool. They're really cool. All right, before we get to the largest tusk ever, Angie, conservation tip of the week. So again, focused on the Arctic, reducing carbon emissions. So I thought this one was good, and that's reuse and recycle. And I'm not talking just about recycling your cans and your bottles and things like that. It's estimated right now about 30% of greenhouse gas emissions from the United States. Now, this is probably very similar to many countries across the world, wherever you're listening to, results from quote unquote provision of goods. That means to make, package, deliver new products burns a lot of fossil fuels. It takes a lot to do that. Even new vehicles, right? But if you buy used products and resell or recycle items that you don't use, you will drastically reduce carbon emissions. So you're talking about the holidays. Maybe you go to, a used shop, buy some used toys for your kids, repackage them.
Absolutely.
Instead of going and buying the brand new thing from Toys R Us isn't even around anymore in the States, but wherever, there's none of that packaging. When you go to buy a car, you should never buy a brand new car anyways, because the second you leave the lot, you've lost like thousands of dollars or wherever currency.
The depreciation's crazy.
Yeah, buy a used car that's been out for a year or two.
Well, even the way my boys go through clothes and destroy them, I just go to the resale shops. I'm not buying them anything new.
Yeah.
And I think for toys, we usually get a lot of our books from the library. But of course, you need books at home, a lot of books at home to read. And so we either get hand-me-downs from friends or we will, go get them from like a Salvation Army.
Yeah.
There's lots of resources. Like what is it? One man's trash is another man's treasure.
Treasure, yeah. And what I'm missing.
And it should be because, and I guess I've really tried to train my brain, and I know my husband does this a lot. Like when I put something in the dumpster, I'm really like, okay, this is going to be on Earth for the next 500 years.
Yes.
Like if I put this in the dumpster,
yes,
I'm okay with the fact, like I've tried to reuse it. I've tried to reduce it or minimize it or recycle it, and I can't. So therefore it has to go in here.
Yeah.
And of course there's stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's just,
it will.
Every day there's stuff that
we're
not perfect.
We're not going to be zero sum. I mean, it's impossible right now, the way our world's built. Maybe one day there'll be a zero sum for carbon emissions for humans. We may get there one day, but we're not there yet. The goal is to slow down and stop the carbon emissions that are polluting the atmosphere.
Right. And just the general waste, especially here in the States, it's horrible.
Yeah. All right. Largest tusk ever, Angie. You said mammoth mastodon. You're close, but it wasn't them. This is the Paleoloxodon, which is the straight tusked elephant. Okay.
Okay.
It was close.
At least I was in the right
area. Yes. So it had a tusk that measured 16.5 feet or almost 5 meters.
Wow.
From, end to end. Yeah. Super long. And they died out about 30,000 years ago in Europe. Now, some other horn facts or some horny facts.
Bring them. Give them to me.
I
love them.
So the mammoth, the Columbian mammoth, was 16 feet. That's the longest tusk they've found. Elephants today, the longest tusk ever found in any elephant, African elephant, was 11.5 feet. Okay. So pretty long. It's longer than the narwhal. Rhinos, the longest horn ever found in a rhino, was 6 feet long or 1.8 meters.
Oh, wow.
Now, you would have thought Triceratops, right? I would have thought a Triceratops would have had super long horns. They're actually only 3 feet or a meter. So they weren't very big. Okay. I mean, that's still big. I mean, it's a big horn on a big creature.
Yeah, big creature.
But still, the straight tooth elephant wins out again. Elephants number one.
I would say, was this guy bigger than the mammoth?
Probably same size, roughly same size. Okay. And it's just, it was a straight tooth because the mastodons weren't quite as tall as a Columbian mammoth. The Columbian mammoth was enormous, but they had the big long curves. But still, from end to end, This guy was just a little bit bigger. So they're about the same size as that.
Cool.
Yeah, they're big guys. All right. So again, for us, as we're in our second year, please share. If you have somebody that loves the ocean, say, hey, check this podcast out. We've covered a lot of ocean creatures. We've got another land creature.
Somebody that loves unicorns.
Yeah, there you go. Somebody with kids. Say, hey, your kids will love this podcast. Just fast forward through some of the repro stuff sometimes. But other than that, we warn you when that comes up.
Yeah, we try to keep it PG.
Yeah, we do. So anyways, Angie, thank you. We got another big one coming up next week.
I know. I'm really excited. So Stay tuned, stick with us, and thank you for listening, everyone.
All right, take care.
Listen, learn, share. Join the movement at allcreaturespod.com.